What's up, guys? It's Miss Doyle coming to you with the Gilded Age. So, this is the time period in history where we were the most corrupt. So, this is just an introduction, and just like any time we do notes, we always have a guided note taking sheet. On the guided note taking sheet right now, the directions are using the educational clip. Please complete the following guided note taking sheet, pause this video, and record information as you are watching. So, yes, this will all be in order. Okay. Maybe these names will be out of order, but for the most part, everything, all the questions will be in order. We're going to be focusing on the big businesses, what they did, what are robber barons versus what is captains of industry. And then once we have done the intro, we're going to go in a little bit more detail about how immigrants lived. For example, Jacob Reese wrote How the Other Half Lived. So you're going to have to pause the video in order to the designated minute, and that minute will be right here. Of course, I can't plug that in just yet until I'm finished with the video. So you'll pause the video and observe what is going on in the cartoon. You'll write, hey, there's people sleeping in a very close quarter, so they have a really small room. What can you infer based off the cartoon? Meaning, tell me, do you think they're rich? Do you think they're poor? Do you think they're sick? Do you think they're immigrants? And what questions do you have about this cartoon that leaves it unanswered? What do you want to know more about? For example, is there a fire escape, or is there more rooms in the house, or was just that their whole apartment? So you'll do that for 5 photos, and then you'll come down here and answer these questions. So let's go ahead and get started with today's presentation. Our objectives, as soon as they load. Students can identify major characteristics of the Gilded Age. So we got 2 tasks today. Watch this video and do the guided note-taking sheet while you're watching the video. So this is the compelling question. Why do we call it the Gilded Age? What does gilded mean? Okay, it's something that's almost, it's torn, but it's good and bad at the same time. So it's a time period after the Civil War and before the Progressive Era, which is our next unit. It is a period of intense change that transformed the United States from a predominantly rural nation into a modern industrial society. So the Gilded Age was coined by Mark Twain, and I want you to think about a golden apple. And when you think about a golden apple, you think someone's super rich. Okay, it's going to look very appealing. It makes it seem like it's unreal, like oh wow, a gold apple. But the moment that you take a bite of it, it's actually rotted inside. And that's what's going on with the Gilded Age. On the outside, America looks like this amazing place. Immigrants are moving in here for better opportunities to get land, to get jobs. But then they get here and they realize it is nothing like they experienced ever in their life. Okay, there is tight living quarters. There are unsanitary conditions such as feces in the street. Nobody's cleaning it up. There are no fire escapes. People are having to, exchange their votes in order to get a job. Okay, and if you're an immigrant and you're coming over here to this country, you're going to do everything you can to get a better living. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow or later on in this slide. So here's some key terms to know, and these will be in your guided note-taking sheets. You'll have to write some of them down. So how does business in America operate? It's based on social Darwinism. Now, not Darwinism as in animals and us, survival of the fittest, but social Darwinism refers to businesses. Okay, it's used to be the survival of the fittest with regards to business. So those businesses like McDonald's, okay, are starting to run out those mom and pop shops for breakfast and for lunch and for dinner. And we more and more start going to fast food restaurants than we do family-owned businesses. So the robber barons, which we'll talk about here in a second, okay, are the bad guys. They are the ones that will try to get as much money as they can, and they will try to take over your business as cheap as they possibly can. And the thing about America is, yeah, we are capitalism, but you need to understand what laissez-faire capitalism is. The government should not interfere with business, but regulate prices on supply and demand, meaning it's the business owners who get to determine what they are going to sell something for. We as the people determine what we're going to buy something for. So that means if you want to buy $120 AirPods, that's your choice. It is Apple's choice to sell them at that price. It is your choice to buy them. And if you don't have that money, you can go buy the knockoffs for $10 or $15 at Rugged Warehouse here in Elizabethtown. So that's your choice to get the ones that are less of quality, or if you're going to pay that money. And the government should not regulate those prices because it's the business owners who determine how much to sell a product based on how much we're willing to buy it. Next, we're going to talk about captains of industry. Okay, so we have robber barons and captains of industry, and you can be both. A captain of industry is a positive idea that the industrial leaders worked hard and deserved their wealth. So they would take their money and they would be a philanthropist. And what a philanthropist is somebody who gives to charity and they give to donations. And we'll talk more about that throughout the slides. We've been talking about a robber baron, a term used as a negative reference to businessmen and bankers who dominated their respective industries and amassed huge personal fortunes by pursuing various anti-competitive or unfair business practices. You're going to see right here in this picture, this is talking about the U.S. Standard Oil Company. Okay, and what U.S. Standard Oil did, it was almost like an octopus or a tentacle, and it tried wrapping its hands or arms around everything it could. You're going to see in the picture, you got the White House right here. Okay, you got the Capitol. You have, all kinds of things where it's wrapping around its tentacles because Standard Oil had the money. Think about cars that were getting produced. And Standard Oil, when you look at this picture, you obviously can tell that it is an evil picture, and that is an oil drum as its head. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about muckrakers during the Progressive Era. So now let's talk about the two types of business models that ultimately created monopolies during, and a monopoly is where one person controls all aspects of a business, meaning AT&T was the only cellular provider. Okay, that means they can jump up the prices rather than bring them down because of the competitiveness. Like for example, you get unlimited deals. Back in the day, you couldn't even you had to buy minutes, you had to buy maybe even data. So now we have unlimited plans, and that's because of the other cell companies being able to offer competitive prices. So it always, competitiveness and businesses are how you make money. So the first one is vertical integration, and Andrew Carnegie is the one that's going to do this, and horizontal is John D. Rockefeller. So vertical integration is when you buy your suppliers out in order to control all aspects of a product. And I'm going to show you a chart exactly what it looks like. And horizontal integration is when different companies produce the same amount of product, so they just merge together to make one large company. Okay, and this is a example of how this is going to work: vertical versus horizontal. So that means if you are a business, okay, you got purchase of companies at all levels, meaning you control all aspects. You have no middleman that delivers it for you. You control everything from the cattle and herding the cattle to the slaughterhouse, from the slaughterhouse to you own your own railroad cars. So this is your own business. You do not have to have a middleman. For example, look at Walmart. Okay, Walmart has products in Walmart that they could operate on the same way, but they get other products outsourced. Or Home Depot has merchandisers. For example, I used to be a merchandiser for Cottage Gardens through Home Depot. So they hired outside sources to come in and take care of the plants. I worked at Cottage Gardens, not at Home Depot. I just came in to take care of the plants, and that was my only job: to water, to make sure the sales prices, so on and so forth. That's not what's going on in vertical integration. The business owner owns everything from the bottom all the way to the top, to even whenever they're selling it, such as Ace Meat Industries. So they have every aspect in it. Now, horizontal integration is a little bit different. Okay, so this is John D. Rockefeller's U.S. Oil Company. And what he did is, these are mom and pops oil refineries. Okay, he would lower his prices because he controlled 90% of U.S. oil. He would lower them so business A would go out of business and he would buy it. Now he owns this one. Then he would ask to buy this one. So he bought all the rest of the oil refineries so he could control the prices of oil and make an outstanding amount of money. So even though they might be individual businesses spread out all throughout America, it's really owned by one person. Okay. So if we had to look at the McDonald's in Elizabethtown or Radcliffe, they're owned by, I think his name's Tom Burrell family. Okay. They own the McDonald's here, so they can control the prices to a degree. They're not a monopoly because there's other McDonald's and other fast food businesses around. That doesn't. You have to be the only person with the product to have a monopoly. So, but they own all four McDonald's, so they under the Burrow Corporation or whatever it's called. So that's how it would look with horizontal integration. So now I've been mentioning names, and we haven't really talked about who they are. And these are the big four that you have to know, and this is what you're filling out in your chart. From the Gilded Age, we have some of the most well-known businessmen. They were captains of industry, and they were robber barons. They're the bad guys who are raising prices, treating their workers terrible, giving them minimum wage, if not just lower, and working them every day. But at the same time, they're investing the money that they make back into America. They're influencing politics, so on and so forth. So we're going to focus on four: J.P. Morgan, John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, and Cornelius Vanderbilt. So let's talk about J.D., John D. Rockefeller. He is going to found the U.S. Standard Oil Company. Okay, oil, cars just came out. Oil is a commodity. Okay, and he owns 90% of it. He did that horizontal integration just like we saw on that chart. And he was able to control all the companies related to oil and therefore became very rich and very wealthy. Think about how much oil we use today. Do you really think we could live within a society without cars or gasoline or oil? Absolutely not. And when I say he was rich, here in the corner is a picture of what his house looked like. It's a mansion. Okay. Now let's go to Andrew Carnegie. He dominated the steel industry. Look at our buildings right now, our really tall structures. We had to have steel in order to have an actual, city, a structure that would last for a long time. Because you can't just use bricks. That's not going to last. You need to have steel. So Carnegie was a Scottish immigrant who built himself up for nothing. Okay, he had the vertical integration where he owned all aspects of producing steel, delivering steel, creating the steel beams, all that. He did all that. And he was a major philanthropist. I mean, think about Carnegie Hall. He gives away $350 million, but look, he gives it away. Look at the mansion that he's living in. And these were not nice men. One of the things that Carnegie is going to be known for is the gospel of wealth, which stated the philosophy that wealthy Americans bore the responsibility of using their great fortunes to further social progress. He established things such as the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, the New York Public Library, and a college that would become part of Carnegie Mellon University. Let's talk about J.P. Morgan. Okay, he is going to be a banking and railroad guru. He dominates the financing industry. He even bails out the American government at their time of need. He was responsible for merging several major companies, aka monopolist, okay, such as General Electric. He even buys oil from John D. Rockefeller, or I mean, not Rockefeller, Carnegie Steel, from Carnegie. And he was created the first $1 billion company. So he was almost one of the first billionaires, and this is the mansion that he lived in right here. His wealth is still around today in several famous establishments, especially banks, and bailed out the U.S. economy on more than one occasion. Here are some political cartoons that were created during the time, and we'll look more in those later on this week when we do our activities. Let's talk about Cornelius Vanderbilt. Dominated the railroad industry, owned every single railroad. Okay, of course, this was before J.P. Morgan actually did some, bought out people from steel to oil to the railroads. He founded a prominent university in Tennessee, known as one of the richest men in American history. The irony in this is these men controlled these huge businesses, and they put out other companies out of businesses, and they gave all their money away to charities or places that really needed the money. Okay, so you got to understand, workers are working 7 days a week, a ridiculous amount of hours, maybe like 18 hours a day. Could you work that 17 and get less than minimum wage just to be there? You have no safety regulations. They don't care about you. They treat you terrible. That's what's going on. and they're milking them dry, and they're becoming rich off of it, and then taking that money and using some of it to put back into the American economy. And you're going to see in this picture right here that these are those robber barons I'm telling you about, the people who are rich in America. And you'll see in this picture they're made out of money bags. Okay, so back then things were, held in money bags. And the reason why they're standing behind the senators and representatives is because the people with the money then controlled how politics went. Um, so they definitely had their hands in everything, just like that picture we saw of the octopus. So now let's talk about a dude who wanted to bring America to the attention of what's going on in cities. So he's going to be a muckraker. And I'm introducing you this because I want you to look at pictures and how people live. Because he writes the book, How the Other Half Live. He's an American reporter, a social reformer, and a photographer. He documents the squalid living conditions in New York City slums in 1880s, which served as a basis for future muckraking journalism. So a muckraker is somebody who is letting you know about the corruption that is going on in America. They're raking up the muck of corruption. So muckraking journalism by exposing the slums to New York City's upper and middle class. So what you're going to do is you're going to pause the video. This is photograph number 1. Okay. And you're going to talk about those 3 questions. Okay. So pause the video and I'm going to keep going. Photo number 2. Now notice you'll see right here, is this real? This is almost just like an alleyway. And that this mother and this child, could you live like this if this was your room? Photo number 3. Okay, these boys are obviously outside. Okay, they obviously live on the streets. Photo number 4. Okay, this is called a tenement house. So people, it's almost like you would have roommates today. For example, I have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I have 2 other roommates. They rent out the other rooms. But in a tenement house, there's not a whole lot of rooms there. You just get a space in the apartment to go to sleep in. The next photo. Okay. So be sure to complete the introduction to the Gilded Age and guided note-taking sheet. Again, I will go through and I will put the minutes right here to where you can pause it so you guys know exactly how the other half lived. Make sure you answer all 3 questions. This is not an optional question. Put at least one thing. And you guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you soon.